transition to empire, right? So the first emperors that come, right, as part of this principate, we call them the Julio-Claudians because they come from either the family of Augustus, the Julii, or the family of his wife Livia from the Claudii, right? So Augustus Tiberius Caligula, Claudius Nero, right? And it's the package of special powers that were granted to Augustus being passed down to his heir, and so on. Okay. Now, opposition to imperial rule. There was opposition, right, to these kind of extraordinary powers that Augustus was gaining, and then the passage of those powers to his successors. But this opposition was largely limited to the aristocracy. Members of the senatorial class who saw their own power being taken away at the expense of Augustus. So they weren't happy, or a lot of them weren't happy. But one of the reasons why Augustus and his successors are going to be successful is that they're going to have the support of the armies and the common people. Why do you think they're going to have the support of the armies and the common people? Any guesses?
I guess because they give them money, stability, peace, security.
There you go, right? Brian?
And just add on, these emperors, actually, before they became emperor, as we all know, these people have already have currently held, well in their time, already high-ranking positions within Roman society.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're pretty well known among not just the people, but also among the military class.
Mm-hmm.
So as people that we're talking about, or some of them at least, we have some total experience in the military.
Yes. Right, so they are, I mean, well, some will be experienced, some less experienced, right? This is the problem with blood-related succession policies, right? So, I mean, there is going to be some capability there, right? But as I forgot, I had the answer up here, but Kieran hit it right on the head, right? Again, the stability is going to be a big part of it, right? Pre-Augustus, we've had decades of civil war, massive loss of life, right? We've had all sorts of economic problems. Under the empire, under the emperors, things are going to be relatively, comparatively stable compared to the time before. This is going to earn a lot of loyalty. All right, but again, you're going to have your enemies. You're going to have powerful enemies. So there's going to be a big movement to eliminate them with a legal charge of treason. So any type of talk against or action against the emperors, right, is now treason against the state. So emperors are going to start to employ basically informers. So people can bring information about plots, about treasonous officials. They can prosecute people directly, and there's a large reward. Here.
So could like an enemy state of Rome, like maybe Carthage back then, pay like a citizen or senator to spy on Rome?
Yeah, but there's, I mean, in theory, yes, but there's not really, at this point, there's not really anyone else, like Rome is really like top dog at this point. After Augustus takes out Cleopatra in Egypt, I mean, I guess technically like the Parthians, I don't know if we've heard anything about this happening, largely because there's not a lot of secrets the same way, right? Like, I mean, most stuff is pretty much out in the open.
Right.
So I guess theoretically, but I can't think of any examples. All right, so 68 CE, there's going to be a revolt, and the Emperor Nero, someone who is relatively unpopular, at least among the elite, is going to be killed. And this is something interesting. Throughout the time of Augustus and his successors, there was some chatter, some talk about when is the Republic going to be restored. When Nero is killed in 68, there's no mention of restoring the Republic. The only discussion is, well, who's going to take over? Who's going to be the next leader?
But I have a question. When Nero dies, why people is it true that he sang as he watched Rome burn?
So yes. Well, or is it true? I don't know. Is it a story that later Romans told about him to illustrate how bad he was? Yes. Did he actually do it? We don't know.
Professor,
Yeah.
I think I'm going way too ahead of myself, but
Oh.
when you have the rise of Constantine,
Yes.
I think he has like appointed like different bishops to his court. Like, did they act as like a senate in a way to a degree?
No, and for the most part, Constantine tried to kind of maintain some separation between the church hierarchy and the state hierarchy. We'll get to that in a second, but not really. Okay. Anyway, no mention of restoring the republic, right? The question is, well, who's going to be in charge now, right? There's no more Julio Claudians. The Senate kind of takes a vote, decides this guy named Galba is going to be in charge, but no one's really happy with this. 69 CE, we get what's called the Year of the Four Emperors, because there's four people at one point or another who claim to be emperor, to hold this power, right? The ultimate winner, right? Vespasian is kind of an interesting case, right? He's the general of one of the kind of powerful Roman armies. His army is basically going to, probably with his encouragement, declare him to be emperor, and that's going to be his justification for why, he is the authentic emperor, right? Like, why is it that he is legitimate? Because my army kind of declared me to be emperor, right? So this support of the army is going to become kind of increasingly part of both becoming emperor as well as holding on to emperor. So he kicks off the Flavian dynasty, where it's him and then his two sons, Titus and Domitian, who rule after him.
They're the ones that go into Jerusalem and take the...
They are, yes. So they're going to be, we'll talk more about that in a later class, but yeah. He and Titus are going to be, on the Roman side against the Judean rebellion. All right, so today we're going to be talking about, so that was finishing up last time. Today we're going to be talking about administration, right, and maintaining imperial control over this large, diverse empire. Roman Empire at its height, right? Again, covering a vast territory, right? So, Rome is a multicultural, multi-ethnic empire, right? Meaning that there are people of all different backgrounds, all different traditions, right, who are now under Roman authority. In general, right? So again, in general, the Roman policy was one of toleration. In terms of kind of beliefs and practices, traditions, the Romans really didn't care what you did. Worship whatever god you want, dress however you want, talk however you want, live however you want. One good, right? There are two kind of precepts. Number one, pay your taxes, right? Do what you want, pay your taxes. Number two, the nebulous and paraphrased by me, don't rock the boat, right? Because if you do something to kind of rock the boat that causes instability, it leads to taxes not being paid, and that's bad, right? So again, general tolerance, so long as you continue to pay your taxes and don't rock the boat. All right, now what?
That's what Paul did, right? He was rocking the boat. Yeah.
Yes, right. So we'll talk about Judaism and Christianity and how, from the Roman perspective, this was rocking the boat. But in the grand scheme of things, although it's a very important example because of how things kind of turn out, that's going to be more the exception than the rule, right? That most kind of local beliefs and practices, including religious beliefs, aren't going to be viewed as problematic.
Was the spread of Christianity actually rocking the boat?
Yes. Well, sort of. From the we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. It requires a little bit more depth than we have time for now. But it leads to, for various reasons, it leads to instability from the Roman perspective, and that is what the Romans don't want, right? Anything that is kind of making waves is problematic. Okay, now it's just not just tolerance, right, but kind of Roman citizenship, meaning, well, not just prestige, but access to Roman law, right? That gives you economic and political opportunities, right? This is going to be spreading through the empire as well. So at first, it's going to spread to local elites. So people in the various regions who are kind of basically helping to govern, usually at like the city level, the municipal level, are going to receive Roman citizenship. It will go to people for military service, so non-citizens who enroll in the military and serve for 30 years will get Roman citizenship, right? And eventually kind of entire regions are going to be granted citizenship until we hit a point where everyone living in the Roman Empire will be a Roman citizen.
Caracalla does that, right?
Yes. Yep. All right, so everyone good? Good, all right. So, Domitian, right? Part of the Flavian dynasty. Domitian is not going to be a very popular guy, again, with the aristocracy. One of the things that he does, or one of the big things that he does, right, is as part of his reign, he cultivates this image that he is an absolute monarch, right, without using the word that he is a king, as opposed to his predecessors that were really leaning into this idea of princeps. Right, what did princeps mean again?
Isn't it first among citizens?
First among
Equals.
First among equals, right? So it means first, but really kind of first among equals. That I'm not really, I'm more awesome than you, but we're all kind of the same, right? Domitian goes in another direction. I am special, like the way that kings used to be special, right? So one, the association with the divine. Now this had been happening to emperors for a while, right? Starting with Julius Caesar. But it happened after their death. After someone died, right, there would be this recognition that they became divine. Augustus declared that Julius Caesar had become divine after his death. Tiberius declares that Augustus became divine after his death. That was palatable. Domitian starts associating himself while living with the divine. This is going to be rubbing people the wrong way, because again, it smacks of kingship. He starts creating statues of himself that are placed over or throughout the Roman Empire. You might say, well, what's the big deal about that? Lots of statues. Well, again, all of his predecessors, those statues, really not when you're alive, right? After your death, yes. While you're living, not so much, right? But he, again, goes into, while I'm alive. And then all sorts of kind of court rituals, things like kind of bowing, kind of scraping the floor when you're in his presence, kissing his feet, that kind of stuff, right? So real kind of absolute monarch stuff. This like turns everyone against him. He loses support. He's going to be assassinated in 96. Although I guess irony, right, is that all of the stuff that he starts doing is eventually going to become standard practice for Roman emperors over time.
Do we have details on his assassination? Like where he was killed?
I don't remember. We do. I'm not remembering off the top of my head. Yeah, I don't. We do. I'm just not. I'm not remembering. All right. Anyway, Domitian. Questions? Okay. So after Domitian, we are going to get the period that gets called the period of the 5 good emperors. Good, perhaps being in quotes, right? But the thing that sets these emperors apart, right, which is not necessarily by choice on their part, right, is that they each of these 5 adopt kind of an established, capable adult as their son and imperial successor. So someone who has already proven themselves, like as a general and a politician, will be adopted as, okay, this is my son and heir, right? Now, the reason why I say, well, it's not really by design, is part of the reason they do it is that they end up without living sons, to succeed them, so they have to adopt someone else. But this gets looked at as kind of a virtuous period because they're pretty effective rulers, and they end up kind of finding someone effective to succeed them. Was there a question? There's your hand up. Okay. All right. So Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antonius Pius, Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius breaks the chain, though, because he does have a son to succeed him, and his heir and son Commodus, right, is going to take over after his death. If you've seen the first Gladiator movie, right, that's a kind of a fictionalization of that, right? But Commodus is going to rule, and Commodus is, by popular agreement, not going to be a good emperor.
That's saying something considering in that and then years following since Commodus' rule, we began to see the beginnings of the empire's decline.
One could argue that, yep. One could argue that. So under Trajan, right, this is when Rome reaches its largest kind of geographical area. So under Trajan, Rome is going to conquer the territories of Dacia, up here, right, Mesopotamia, right, so city of Babylon all the way to the Gulf, and parts of Arabia, right? So this is kind of in the red, the biggest geographically that Rome is ever going to be. His successor deems, right, Hadrian deems that further expansion is really not going to be practical. We're not going to be able to sustain it, right? So he basically declares the boundaries of the Roman Empire to be fixed, right? That these are now the boundaries of the Roman Empire, and that, theoretically speaking, right, we're not going to try to acquire more land. He is famous for, again, marking this boundary by having his wall built across the top of Great Britain up here. That's called Hadrian's Wall, named after him. Okay, questions here? All right. So, Trajan's Column, again, monument within Rome, celebrating his victory over the Dacians, right? So again, the people that he conquered and brought into the empire. Big column here. In it, there's kind of a graphic narrative of his military campaign. Right? Here's a kind of a close-up of the scenes, so you can see the army on the march to go and fight the Dacians. So again, showcasing his achievements in this public monument. All right, brings us to our first primary source, the confusingly numbered 32 instead of 30, right? Aelius Aristides to Rome. Okay. So, now you're all on the spot. So, what's the context for the speech? In the background section. This background, right?
So the background is that around the year 155 CE. A wealthy landowner named Publius Aelius Aristides. He Roman citizenship, and during his time he visited the imperial court in Rome. And Emperor Antonius, we delivered a full public speech of praise on the glories of the Roman Empire and the greater of the even greater achievement, the Pax Romana, the 20 years of peace and prosperity, and stability that throughout the ancient world under Roman rule.
So a big public speech in front of the emperor about how awesome Rome is, right? So again, what are you going to expect to see in the speech? All sorts of awesomeness. Okay, so does anyone have anything interesting or notable that they found in the speech? Anthony?
He keeps like locals in charge, so he doesn't need, so they don't need like troops within those certain regions.
Okay,
Locals
so
do it
again,
for
one
them.
of the ways he celebrates Rome is the fact that they keep locals in charge. Okay, good. It's interesting. Anyone else have anything interesting to know? Yeah? Brian, what do you have?
So what I found interesting with this line, in the first paragraph, we talks about we talk about how the Mediterranean Sea extends like a belt toward the other continents. Means how Rome, has expanded in those other continents, and as we've seen from the maps, and so far in this class, and from the Middle East, throughout North Africa, and even to a certain extent, into Asia, as we've seen before.
So what's kind of his point? What's Aristides' point that he wants to make before the emperor?
The main point one of them will be that for the emperor, you should not reign with fixed boundaries. Like there should be no limit in how the empire should or how can it expand.
Right.
Especially when it's situated in the so-called civilized world.
So there's no boundaries for Rome. There's nothing to stop Rome, right? Except just the end of geography itself. Okay. Something else? All right, well, I'll pull out my interesting points. Okay. Well, Brian hit one on the head. Look at that, right there. Number one, right, he says here on the first page, you do not reign within fixed boundaries, and another state does not dictate the limits of the land that you control. So what does this say about Rome? Why is it that another state does not dictate the limits?
That basically no state has the power of Gaul to attempt to dictate Rome's limits.
There you go, right? No state can stand up to Rome in terms of power or whatever. Ryan?
Maybe we consider, well, again, how far, how far the Roman society, as a whole, both Roman society and military has come over the years. Especially under the emperors, which held reign for many years, and in which they helped strengthen Rome's control over the territories.
Yep. And then again, that power cannot be matched from the outside.
A lot of these people don't have like military discipline. They don't have that proper structure to actually go and like fight Rome itself.
I mean, in truth, actually, they do, right? And they're able to kind of hurt Rome in various ways. So there's, in the speech, no, right? Like in the speech, Rome stands alone. In reality, like I said, so we want to differentiate maybe a little bit between high praise, slightly exaggerated, or greatly exaggerated, and reality. So yes, Rome does have more military discipline, and is the most powerful state in town. But its neighbors are like, well, in other words, right? Rome does have fixed boundaries, right? Hadrian, who ruled just before Antoninus Pius, fixed the boundaries of Rome because it was getting too hard for Rome to expand. So, yes and no. Yes and no. All right, what about number two? He refers to Rome. He says, what one does not see here, one does not exist. Here he's talking about kind of the trade that is coming into Rome. This is page 2.
Basically everything in the world comes to Rome through trade.
Okay. So what does that say about Rome?
Like they are trading power of the world.
Okay, trading power of the world, right?
That they also, as I mentioned before, in the presentation, that since Rome, since Rome is multicultural, essentially open society, that means, and since people are able to live and do what they want, as long as they follow the rules, and that also implies that Rome, as mentioned before, has become this global center for trade and commerce. Considering, and when we consider the trade routes that connects Rome to other parts of the globe,
Right.
all other times.
And again, right, that there's the kind of diversities and people there might be kind of increasing demand for diverse goods too, right? But again, it's so much trade. Rome's connected to every area of the world that basically, if you don't see it in Rome, then it must not exist. In other words, everything that exists in the world, in terms of like goods, stuff, it gets shipped to Rome, right? All right, one could say that the people of today are ruled by governors sent out to them, only to the degree that they wish to be ruled. Page 3. What does he mean by this? Once again, imagine he's kind of buttering up the emperor right here, right? This is like, lots of like very effusive, hyperbolistic praise. This thing here.
Basically, that Rome only sends out governors to people who, I guess, request or want.
Right. So basically, it's like they're ruled by governors, but you could almost say they're ruled by governors because that's what they want the governors there ruling them, right? So if they want what is Rome not doing then by this speech?
I guess
like forcing, like positioning
Right.
these people on these positions.
We're not forcing people to be part of the empire. We're not ruling over them. No, it's almost like they want us to come and have governors there, right? This is how much people love Rome. 4, no one is a foreigner who deserves to hold an office or is worthy of trust.
So if you're powerful or talented, you're not considered a foreigner.
Why not? I mean, yes, but why not?
I guess because they deserve the position they're in.
And what does that position come with?
Wealth and status and power.
And?
Citizenship.
Right, okay, there you go, right? So again, exaggeration, right? But again, talking about the municipal elites, like, again, Aristides himself, right? That they had been given Roman citizenship. Now again, doesn't mean they're necessarily worthy of trust, I don't know, right? Embellishment, that's the idea, right? Is that Romans are generous with their citizenship. It creates opportunities for people who were once non-Roman to serve. And that is true. All right, it is now possible for Hellene and non-Hellene, right? So kind of Hellenized person from the east or non-Hellene, with or without property, to travel with ease wherever he wishes, as though passing from homeland to homeland. What do you think?
I guess that like Roman roads and cities are so safe that you can travel across them
Mhm.
without worry.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? So again, safety of travel. What about from homeland to homeland?
I guess because the different Roman colonies or Roman homelands.
I mean, what does it mean what does it mean to go home? Like if one of us says, "Oh, I'm going home," like what sets home?
Oh, it's culturally similar.
Right, or
So
familiar,
It's like,
right?
yeah.
Familiar.
And so again, he's talking about there's a diversity of peoples, rich or poor, from different backgrounds. But again, Rome is almost standardized in its diversity, right? That it's like feels like you haven't left home, right? Because it's so safe and because you're going to go and whatever you expect to be at your home is going to be there as well too.
So basically, you can go from Londinium to like Rome and continue.
And it still feels like
Yeah,
home.
Rome.
Now again, exaggeration, right?
Right.
But this is to the question of, okay, so this is a speech being given to the emperor. What can it tell us, right? Does it tell us the truth? I mean, sort of, maybe,
More or less.
a little bit, more or less. But really, what it tells us, how do like Roman authorities at the time, how do they want to see themselves? Right? How does the emperor kind of idealize his role? Right? Or how, when he thinks about kind of the good that he's doing, right? What's going to be important to him? We see some things that are coming up, right? This idea of kind of being an appreciated ruler, someone who's not, with the thumb on the populace, but is working in partnership, right? Maintaining safety, Someone who is promoting trade and wealth that comes from all of this, right? So again, it speaks to a vision of how the emperor wants to see himself, right? No real mention of victory in battle or stuff like that. That's not the image that's being cultivated, right? It's someone who is turning the empire into kind of this paradise, and it's a paradise not just for him, but for everyone, right? Everyone is benefiting from Rome. All right, let's move on. So, Commodus, right? Biological son of Marcus Aurelius. Commodus succeeds his father, and then immediately Commodus starts breaking lots of rules. He declares himself, or at least associates himself, with the godhood. So once again, we've got a divine emperor. And from the statue over there, can anyone guess what god he likes associating himself with? He's got a club. He's got a lion skin.
Yeah, Hercules.
Heracles, right? Which again, Heracles, the only mortal ever to become a god, at least up until this point, right? Or other points. So again, not going to be popular. Commodus also really likes gladiators, hence part of the reason why there's the first Gladiator movie. But that's actually, he really likes gladiators. He likes hanging out with gladiators. He likes pretending to fight with gladiators. Ultimately, he'll be assassinated by a gladiator. But allegedly, the sources say he's got no interest in politics, right? He just kind of wants to be adored and wants to play. So his kind of regime becomes exceedingly corrupt, which leads to a popularity. So he'll be assassinated. One story is that he's strangled by a gladiator in his bathtub. There's going to be a massive civil war. And just to kind of up the ante a little bit, the next year, right, we had the year of the 4 emperors. The year after Commodus, we get the year of the 5 emperors, where there were 5 people all claiming to be emperor all at once. All right. So a little bit about administration, right? We mentioned with Augustus the reliance on the emperor's household in order to kind of manage the emperor's business, and how this kind of grows into a new bureaucracy, a new administration that's called the Familia Caesaris, right? The household of Caesar. And so this is going to be kind of the civil service of the Roman Empire. And it is made up entirely of enslaved persons and freedmen, right? So formerly enslaved persons, right? And it's going to be a position of, again, relative power and prestige, right? Which creates a bit of a disconnect, right? Because you have individuals of the lowest status, even individuals who are enslaved, but occupying this kind of potentially prestigious kind of government role. And this is going to create it's going to create some issues, we'll say, in the rule of certain emperors, right? But for the most part, seems to work rather effectively.
When it says Commodus didn't care for politics, did he have advisors, consuls ruling for him?
Well, I mean,
or making his decisions?
all emperors do, right?
Right, yeah.
Right. All emperors do. They're not doing everything. Just the word against him is that he really had no interest and no direction. He just basically let other people do everything without any oversight. And that led to corruption.
Right.
So the stories go. Now, the stories, like I said, are very hostile towards him. So.
And speaking of hostile, is it also true that Commodus spent much of his time in the gladiator fights at the Colosseum?
Yeah. Yep. So, not real fights himself, though. Nothing where he could actually get hurt. But he would be attending, or he'd be out doing some pretend stuff.
So would he spar in front of the citizens of Rome, or would he do it privately?
There's talk of him performing in the Colosseum, but again, the emphasis is all on no one's supposed to touch him or hurt him or anything like that. So, I mean, again, negative sources, right? So the negative sources make it all appear that it's all play acting, right? But probably not seriously in danger of getting killed, I would assume. All right, emperors basically are going to become a source of Roman law themselves, right? That whatever they say, whatever they decide, will carry the force of law. right? And so this is going to essentially build out Roman law. Roman law becomes more expansive because again, it's easy to make laws and will be a big part of Roman citizenship, right? A way of kind of allowing citizens to maintain order and stability, right? By kind of legislating complaints as opposed to solving disputes in other ways. And emperors want to maintain the loyalty of the people, the so-called bread and circuses, right? Free and cheap grain and providing free entertainment. So this brings us to our next source on Domitian, right? So this is from a biography of Domitian written by the historian Suetonius. Okay, again, we got a very negative view of Domitian, right? That survives, but we can see that Domitian did some things too that were perhaps well received. So it says he, Domitian, frequently entertained the people with the most magnificent and costly shows, not only in the amphitheater, it's like the Colosseum, but also the circus. The circus was the racing track. So kind of a long track for horse races, that was the circus. Where besides the usual chariot races, with the 2 or 4 horses abreast, he exhibited the imitation of a battle betwixt cavalry and infantry. And in the amphitheater, a sea fight. So what's he staging? On the circus and in the amphitheater.
Naval engagements, like fighting.
Yeah, like fake battles, including a fake naval battle, right? Where they basically flood the Colosseum and have ships in the Colosseum and kind of a mock naval battle, right? The people too were entertained with wild beast hunts and gladiator fights, even in the nighttime. All right, this is interesting. Why does Suetonius say even in the nighttime? Like, why bother mentioning that?
I guess because it was rare.
Why was it rare?
It's hard to see.
Right. What do you lack in the nighttime? Light.
Like,
Lighting up a big area like that, basically using like lamps and torches, it's not easy and it's costly, right? So this is speaking to kind of his kind of dedication and extravagance that he's going to hold these shows even at night, right? Which requires lighting it all up, right? By torchlight, right? He constantly attended the games given by the quaestors, which had been disused for some times, but were revived by him. Right, so he kind of revived other celebrations and games. And upon these occasions, he always gave the people of the liberty of demanding 2 pair of gladiators out of his own private school, who appeared last in court uniforms. So he had his own private gladiators, and he let people choose which ones were going to fight. He presented the people with naval fights performed by fleets almost as numerous as those usually employed in real engagements. Okay. Making a vast lake near the Tiber, the river that's outside of Rome, and building seats around it. And he witnessed these fights himself during a very heavy rain. 3 times he bestowed upon the people a bounty of 300 sesterces per man. So basically gave people a gift, right? And at a public show of gladiators, a very plentiful feast. So you remember Augustus and the res gestae talking about how much money he gave people, right? So 3 times Domitian gave everyone in Rome, or every man in Rome at least it says, right, 300 sesterces. Good amount. At the festival of the 7 Hills, he distributed large hampers of provisions to the senatorial and equestrian orders, and small baskets to the commonalty. And he encouraged them to eat by setting an example, by eating with them. The day after, he scattered among the people a variety of cakes and other delicacies to be scrambled after, and on the greater part of them falling amidst the seats of the lower classes, he ordered 500 tickets to be thrown into each range of benches belonging to the senatorial and equestrian order. So if this is all you have about Domitian, it doesn't sound like that bad of a guy, right? But again, where is his popularity coming from? Right? The entertainment, the bread and circuses. Thoughts about Domitian? Questions? No? All right.
honestly, I think like similarities to the Hunger Games.
I mean that's the Hunger Games. Yeah, are Roman-infused stories, right? So, I mean, the author is borrowing from things that are associated with Rome. Yeah, absolutely. Just some examples, right? So here we have what was called at the time the Flavian Amphitheater, because it was built by the Flavians, right? Vespasian and his sons in Rome. We call it today the Colosseum. You can see again big. This is where, again, many of Domitian's gains took place.
Yeah, Professor, I have a question. Do you know, like, those structures at the bottom of the Colosseum?
Yes. So these are all, this is kind of either like a combination of kind of like tunnels or drainage things underneath the floor of the Colosseum, right? So both ways of like, well, if you're filling it up with water, you've got to drain the water out, you can go up through these things. And then also a way of kind of storing, for lack of better words, animals, people's equipment underneath, and then kind of bringing it up to the floor when it's being used.
Oh,
Wouldn't the water erode the structure, like the base area?
Probably.
So would they just rebuilt it again when it was finished?
I guess so. Or I mean, on the one hand, I mean, it's stone. I mean, it's like stone, and it's not constantly rushing water, so that's going to limit it a little bit. But yeah, especially probably like there's going to be like wooden stakes down there. I mean, wooden beams and supports down there that are probably going to be replaced. Yeah, Kieran.
Were most of the gladiators freemen or like slaves?
I mean, we don't have exact numbers. So a large portion were enslaved. Some were going to be freed, meaning formerly enslaved, and then some are going to be freeborn.
Like
I think generally, I mean, I would say probably the majority would be enslaved, but we don't have good numbers, and I'm not familiar, or that I'm familiar with.
Where would the Romans get the enslaved people, especially during times like this when they're not conquering?
We're not conquering. Again, it would come from basically children of enslaved people. So children of enslaved people would be enslaved themselves, right? And beyond gladiators, and we'll talk about this in our next class, it was how Rome was very much built on, or continues to operate on, enslaved labor. And once military expansion stops, you need to make sure the source continues, right? It's going to be primarily birth. All right. Again, not just Rome, right? So entertainment and structures are being built all throughout the Roman Empire. So this is one of the better preserved amphitheaters found at Nimes in modern France, which was called the Mausis at the time, right? Again, you can see it's not as big as the Colosseum, but still a good-sized, elaborate amphitheater.
I mean, the Colosseum has been largely affected by earthquakes in stone.
Yes.
Stone robbers.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, from over time, absolutely, right? Yeah. It's going to fall into disuse. All right. So remember, Rome's an empire, right? Provinces are still going to be ruled by governors, right? But rather than coming from the magistracies, right, after the term of service, going to be appointed by the emperor through the Senate. So they're going to have kind of the same purview as governors in the Republican era. So they have military command. If there are troops stationed in a province, not every province had troops, but if there were troops, they were under the command of the governor. He was kind of the supreme officer. It was his job to keep order, right? So again, the troops acted as kind of a police force, although there's significant limitations to that, and defend the boundaries. They were, again, responsible for administering justice, right? So they were the chief kind of judge and judicial officer. Everyone in the province, whether Roman citizen or not, was bound to obey the orders of the governor, right? So that they had to basically do what he said. He also possessed the sole right of execution. So in the provinces, he was the only person allowed to order someone's execution. And if he deemed someone represented an immediate threat to Rome, it could be a summary execution, meaning an execution without any trial.
So what was the difference between a prefect and a praetor?
They were different offices initially. A praetor was a magistracy, right, that you were elected by the assembly. Prefects, the word was kind of someone who was in charge of things. All of these titles start to be used a little bit more interchangeably as the empire goes, and as they move further and further away from the Republican roots. So it's not a very good answer, but it's not a easy answer to give. Question? No. Okay. All right. Other job of the governor is to ensure the collection of taxes. Right. If you remember, this had once been kind of farmed out to people, where they would bid on taxes and collect as much as they could, caused a lot of problems. So increasingly, as the empire goes forward and forward in time, the emperors have more and more direct control over establishing that.
So the Publicani, they were the ones that actually collected the taxes,
Yeah,
right?
that was the Latin word for tax. Okay.
Professor. So would they rely? They also rely on locals to collect taxes, or?
Absolutely. So none of this works without basically kind of people at the municipal level, at the city level, right? And here it's going to be local elites, like we just talked about, right? Who are aiding in kind of all types of kind of civil matters, and they and their families get Roman citizenship as an incentive.
So let's say somebody refuses to pay their taxes. Could the governor then summarily execute the person on the spot there?
That might be tricky because it's hard to say that they're an immediate threat to Rome. Maybe. I mean, there's certainly flimsier excuses that are going to be used for summary execution. So maybe. Obviously, that's not a road they want to go down, right? If you're too quick with the execution, it can lead to instability, right? And so you want to kind of keep things stable, ideally. All right. So some examples. This will be the last thing that we talk about here today. So we have some letters written by a guy by the name of Pliny, known as Pliny the Younger, who was, again, a senator, famous writer. He was also appointed governor of Bithynia. He was appointed governor of the province of Bithynia, which was not written on the map, but it was kind of like right up here. Right, so it's a province up there, under the Emperor Trajan. And he had written the emperor a series of letters while he was serving as governor, basically asking the emperor for advice on kind of official questions. We've got the emperor's response, and then later Pliny published these in kind of like essentially a book for public readership. Okay, but this is some of our best evidence for kind of life in the provinces and provincial administration.
Was this the same document we read for the 300 level class?
It
Same
was.
one?
I think this one has a couple more in it, but mostly the same. I think I added a couple of non-legal related ones to this, but same letters. All right, so what I'd like you to do is take 10 minutes, think about the questions that are up here. We already kind of talked about the context, right? But the problems, concerns that appear in the letters, why Pliny wants a fire company, and what they tell us about the role of the governor.
Professor? He doesn't really talk about the Christians, though, right?
Well, not in this packet, he doesn't.
Oh, okay.
He does in another letter. We will talk about that in another class.
this is in Ionia, right?
Ionia adjacent? I would say. I don't know if this area is technically considered Ionia, but I mean, nearby in Asia Minor, at the very least. All right, has everyone had a chance to think about the questions? Yeah? Okay, so what kind of problems or concerns do we see here in this selection of letters?
They don't have a proper fire brigade with the equipment.
Okay, fires, they are extremely, I mean, they're bad now, but they're especially bad in the ancient world. Lots of flammable building materials and often no organized kind of response. So very, very destructive fires. What else do you have? Right.
And there's also the other public works projects in these areas as well. That you know, the public back and in work as well the fire, but also involved. Oh yes, but there's also again the rise in factions.
Okay. So there's concern about rising factions, and we've got the unfinished baths, right? So a need for baths, bathing, which is part of hygiene.
Oh man, aqueduct.
What's that?
Oh yeah, and unfinished aqueduct.
Unfinished aqueduct, yeah. Again, drinking water, also very important. What other problems or concerns do we see? Anything else?
The expenditures of Byzantium was too high,
Mm-hmm.
so he delegated the emperor to sort of.
Or maybe kind of excessive spending, maybe. Okay, good. All right. What about the fire? We talked about the fire company. This one's a very, very important letter, right? So this is number 33 on page 2. So why does Pliny want a fire company?
There was a massive fire, and I think it was in Nicomedia, and they didn't have the proper fire equipment, nor did people actually care. They were kind of lazy to actually do anything about it because they didn't have the equipment for it. So.
Right. So the people were there. They were just kind of milling around, looking at the fire, not really doing anything. Lacked equipment, right? No equipment. It's like no public engine or bucket in place, right? So we need a fire brigade, about 150 men, right? So that they can fight these city fires. It sounds reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Who's against the fire department?
Trajan.
Well, Trajan's against the fire. All right, so again, Trajan says no, right? No fire department. Why? Why?
They formed factions.
What do you mean factions?
Like these groups, like these certain groups of people that would like assemble together,
Right?
and it was known for that specific area. I think it would cause some type of trouble.
I mean, it can be anywhere, right? But he's like, if you have a group of people, any group, any organization,
Give them a name, like legitimize them.
Okay, no legit. But again, firefighters. We want to legitimize firefighters, right? But what's the danger that Trajan says? What's the fear?
Like, however good be the reason for organization, such association will soon degenerate into dangerous secret society.
Okay, dangerous secret societies.
But wouldn't that be the case for like any group?
Yeah,
So what was so particular about this one?
it's a group.
Being
Right?
organized-
Any group that has kind of a name and an identity, a status that comes with it, even if it's not a high status, he says, can degenerate into a dangerous secret society.
I guess he's trying to prevent them from forming like an organized group that could rebel.
And ultimately, right, or at least make waves, right? But what's the origin of this problematic behavior, according to Trajan? Where does it come from?
The rivaling factions.
Right? And where do factions come from?
all that.
Conflict?
Dangerous secret societies,
Yeah.
he says, right? All of a sudden, you've got groups of people, they've got an identity, right? That identity sets them apart from other people. I'm a firefighter, you're not a firefighter. I'm a firefighter, you're a police officer. You're a sanitation worker, right? So we're kind of different. We become insular, protective of our status and identity. Then we start doing secret things, right? Things that other people can't know because they're not part of our group. This is the fear, right? And again, right, it's going to, if not outright rebellion, it's going to cause problems. It's going to be disruptive. Okay? So keep this in mind because this will become important later, right? That Trajan is opposed to a group of firefighters because this is perceived as being potentially dangerous. Because, again, secret society. Right? This is, again, very illuminating for later on in the course.
Was that also the reason why they were persecuting Christians within the areas? Because I think they were practicing within their house, so it could be.
100%. So we'll come back to that, right? But yeah. But again, of the danger of seditious ideas. Okay, so what can we learn about the role of the governor from this? What's the governor's job?
To maintain the colony.
Maintain the what?
The colony.
The colony of the province, right?
Yeah.
Right. What does maintaining the province look like?
Dealing with infrastructure.
Okay.
Political issues, social issues like the aqueducts and the last passage is about him either choosing to make a festival or something for Trajan. I think a statue.
The athletic games.
Yeah, but it was the.
There was a statue in there too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Right.
It's also a part of the governor's job to oversee and to point out the misuse of money.
Okay, good. Where do we see money oversight?
I see in 38
Right.
where it says, yes, by profess is also part of the diligence duty to find out who to blame for the leak of such sums of money by the people of Nicomedia on their aqueducts and whether or not there has been any serving of private interest at the beginning and then abandoning of public works. See that you bring to my knowledge wherever you find out.
Right. So again, it's money that they spent 3 million plus sesterces on an aqueduct, and then got raised taxes another 2 million for another one, unfinished, right? Why do you think Trajan's so concerned about Pliny investigating kind of the use of money in Nicomedia? Why should he care?
It's his
Okay.
province,
It's his province, right? Sure.
and it's Roman's government money being misused.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Also, this money serves a purpose. That this money is going towards the larger convenience society. The environment works right, to even more private things. And if that money is wasted, correct me if I'm wrong, but if people find out about it, that people are gonna stop paying their dues, and it's gonna be one heck of a mess.
Okay.
You know?
So we've got kind of two parts of it here, right? One, I mean, this is, Roman territory, right? That Rome's success, all the riches that Aristides talked about, right? I mean, that's not just the city of Rome being prosperous, that's everywhere being prosperous, right? If money's being misspent or overspent, things are falling apart, that's gonna hurt Rome as a whole. The flip side, right, is it also leads to chaos. If people feel that their money's being misspent, it might make them less willing to pay taxes. Or if they're not getting drinking water, what are they gonna do?
Revolt.
There you go, right? So again, both maintaining prosperity, but also kind of the side note of maintaining stability, you wanna make sure that things are operating smoothly. Anthony?
I was just gonna say something similar to
Okay.
what you said.
Oh, okay. And then, same thing going over the finances in 43, right? Where he's like, look, Byzantium, this guy's getting paid 12,000 sesterces a year to go to Rome and basically bring you a ceremonial degree. I'm like, no, just give it to me, and then I'll take it to him, right? And Trajan's like, yeah.
I was gonna say reporting disastrous events. I mean, he could have like contained it himself, but he had the ability to actually, correspondence with the.
There
emperor.
you go, right? Okay, good. That was gonna be the next one, right? So correspondence with the emperor is going to be part of the job. And historians have spent a lot of time speculating, trying to read the tone of Trajan's response, trying to figure out if Pliny is writing too much or if he's writing just enough. And there's no way to answer that. But I gotta say, people have like spent all of this time trying to analyze Trajan and going like, is he like just Pliny, just deal with it and stop writing me? Or is that what Pliny's supposed to be doing, right? But at any rate, he is supposed to be reporting, right? That's an important part of the job. The fact that Pliny publishes these letters is kind of indicative of this, right? The fact that this is part of the governor's job, relaying information to the emperor and the imperial cult, right? So they can be informed and coordinate decisions and efforts when necessary. All right, any last thoughts? Kieran?
I never really thought that governors even corresponded with the emperors. I think that's pretty interesting, because I always thought there would be like a midway man, that they'd have to contact somebody, that person would, the emperor.
Well, I mean, okay, so there definitely is kind of the emperors have their own kind of like secretariat, right? Kind of correspondence secretaries. So it's going through the middleman. The middleman is probably deciding what to present to the emperor and what not. Maybe, we don't know for sure. The emperor's going to dictate a response or part of a response, and the middleman's going to kind of fill it out. So, but the emperors do seem to be involved, or at least some of them, right? So one of the reasons why sources say Trajan was a good emperor is because he was involved in politics and making decisions. Commodus is a bad emperor because he's not doing this. Now again,
Is it confirmed that Trajan wrote the letters himself?
don't know. Almost certainly didn't write them himself. Did he dictate them? Probably. Or was he involved? Yeah, again, probably yes, right? But no way of knowing for sure. Okay, another hand?
So did they have like a royal road system like they did in Persia?
Yep. They didn't call them royal because kings are bad. But yes, Rome built lots of roads, especially in the West where there were fewer roads built prior to Roman control. So lots of Roman roads.
Are there any surviving roads left from the Roman?
All over the place. It's incredible. I mean, not necessarily actively being used, but have been kind of dug up and preserved and stuff. Because like these are like serious roads. Like you look at we even get books that talk about kind of how they're supposed to be constructed, and like these things were built to last. Like that was the one thing. The Romans did not skimp on roads because they knew that was essential for getting their army from one place to the other.
I remember when I was younger, I learned about a Chinese, I think it was an emperor, who built like a whole tomb with an army. I can't remember who it was.
Was it Xing Huangdi?
Yeah. Were you in class earlier today? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just what we talked about in 203.
Oh my god.
I was like, wait a second, we just talked about that.
I remember seeing a post about that recently.
Yep, and built lots of roads. All right, well, that's what I have for today. So, unless there are any other questions or anything else I can help with, I hope you all have a great weekend, right? Nice long break, lots of relaxation. And yeah, we'll see you on Monday.
Right. Take care, everyone.
Okay, all right.
Take care. We'll go.
See you later. All right.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
You too.
Take care.
Oh yeah.